All right, we're going to start chapter 12 today, and this is called chemical kinetics. Kinetics has to do with motion, and so this is basically going to study the rates of reactions. And before we can talk about kinetics, we just need to review real quick collision theory. We talked about this previously, but this is related to kinetics, and a lot of times you can use this as arguments for why a reaction is going to go faster or slower if you can talk about collision theory. So collision theory says that in order for two things to collide and actually react, these two things have to happen. They have to have enough energy. So just because they collide, it doesn't mean they'll actually change their bonds. They might just bounce off each other. They have to be able to get over the activation energy hill, if you remember those energy diagrams. And then the second thing is they have to have the correct orientation. So if you can increase the possibility that both of these things would happen, then you'll increase the rate of the reaction because more molecules will be able to actually react. So sometimes you can talk about increasing the rate of effective collisions. So the first thing is this is the study of the rates of reactions. And when we talk about the rate of a reaction, we're talking about how fast the reactants are converted into products. So there's several things that can affect that. Just remember, brackets means concentration. So when you put brackets around reactants, it means the concentration of reactants. So if you have a lot of particles in a small volume, they're more likely to have enough collisions that you're going to get effective collisions, and they're actually going to react. Same thing with temperature. If you increase the temperature, you're increasing the energy, which is one of these things that needed for collision theory. So more particles would have enough energy, so you're likely to get effective collisions. Surface area, there's more chances to collide, and then a catalyst is going to lower the activation energy, which allows more of the molecules to get over the hill and actually turn into products. So all four of those things are going to increase the chances that you're going to get effective collisions, which means they're going to increase the speed of the reaction. So this is our first equation down here. When we talk about rate, if we think about it in terms of speed, like your car, we talk about distance over time. So how far your car travels in what amount of time. And it's the same kind of thing with a reaction, except instead of distance, we're talking about converting reactants into products. And so what we can do is measure the concentration. So we can look at how the concentration of A starts and what the concentration as it ends and how long it took to make that change. So instead of distance, we're just looking at the difference in the concentration. So again, delta, that triangle right here, this is talking about change. And anytime you do a change in, you want to do final minus initial. So if they give you two concentrations, and if they give you two amounts of time, you can subtract. So the final minus the initial, and that will give you the rate. Rate, unfortunately, though, is not constant. So most of the time, scientists talk about it in terms of an average. It usually decreases with time, and we'll talk about why in just a few minutes. But you can study a reaction at one particular time. It's called the instantaneous rate. We don't do it very often in this class, but if they give you the graph, you can talk about the slope of the line that's tangent to the curve at that particular point, and that will give you the rate at that point in the reaction. Because it's a delta, it's got subtraction in it, and so you might get a negative sometimes, and that just means that the concentration is decreasing versus the positive means the concentration is increasing. However, we don't really worry about the positives and negatives for rates. We usually just do positive values. So if you're talking about the speed of a reaction, they're not really concerned with what is increasing and what is decreasing. They just want to know how fast the reaction is happening. So we just talk about it in terms of positive values. And keep in mind that those coefficients in the reaction are very important, and I'll show you why in just a minute. Let's take a look at this reaction here. So we've got this reaction where we have two nitrogen dioxides turning into two nitrogen monoxides plus an oxygen molecule. So first of all, just like I said, those coefficients are important. So notice we have a 2 here, a 2 here, and only a 1 right here. And so if you look at that graph, you see how we started with all NO2 because that was our only reactant, and we had 0 of the two products. And as the NO2 got converted, notice that the concentration is decreasing. See how it's going down? Because it's being converted into the other two products. And then the products are starting at 0 and they are increasing. But notice that NO is increasing twice as fast as oxygen, and that's because of that coefficient. So if you look back up here, it's a 2-to-1 ratio where you have 2 NO molecules being produced for every 1 oxygen molecule. And so you can use those coefficients to show the relative rates of consumption. And in fact, if you're trying to convert from one rate into another rate, like if they say the rate of NO is this, what is the rate of O2? It's really helpful to just set up a mole-to-mole ratio, to just set up a little fence and use those coefficients, and you can convert from one rate into another. Again, like I said, rate is not constant, so the reaction occurs when reactants collide correctly to form the product. As the reactants get used up in the reaction, there are fewer and fewer collisions. So you can't have the reactants colliding as much because some of them have then turned into products. And so the rate is going to decrease until eventually it reaches equilibrium. And equilibrium has to do with these reversible reactions. So for this reaction, the same one that we were looking at up on the graph, you can also reverse the reaction. So as the NO2 turns into those two molecules, some of the oxygen and nitrogen monoxide are going to collide and form NO2 again. So it can go both ways. And it makes it very complicated. And so to avoid the complication of the reverse reaction, you can do a couple of things. You can focus on reactions that don't do the reverse reaction. Not all reactions are reversible. But most of the time, and especially in this class, we are just going to focus on the reaction right at the start. And so we're not going to have any products to deal with yet. So if you focus on seeing how the reaction changes right as you start the reaction, then those products haven't really had time to reform the reactants, and so you can eliminate some of that complication. All right, so we're going to talk about some rate laws, and these are just different ways to look at the rate, and it kind of gives scientists information about how the rate depends on various things. So there's two different kinds. There's the differential rate law and the integrated rate law, and you don't really have to distinguish too much between which one to use because all you have to do is look at the information in the question and you can figure out which of these rate laws would make more sense. So we're going to start with the differential rate law, and this one is talking about how rate depends on the concentration of reactants. So it's looking at the relationship between the speed of the reaction and how much concentration of the reactants that you're starting with. And it's going to look like that in number 1, the bold right here. So you have the rate equals K, and K is a proportionality constant called a rate constant. So this is something that is going to be constant for that particular reaction, and you're going to be able to solve for that using the data given to you in the question. N, the exponent on the brackets there, is the order of the reaction, of that reactant. And it basically gives scientists information about how the rate depends on the concentration. So if they know it's a first order or a second order, it gives them a lot of information about that reaction. And I'm going to show you how to solve for both of those. The problem with that lowercase k is that the units are going to change depending on what the order is. So just be really careful with that lowercase k. And this is the trick that you can use, is that the molarity raised to the 1 minus the order, and then seconds to the negative 1 means over seconds. So over whatever the time is, or seconds to the negative 1. Be careful here and note that it is not always seconds. It could be minutes, it could be hours. So maybe on a test or quiz I might change that up and put minutes or hours. So you can't just memorize that as seconds. You have to look at the information and make sure you get the unit right. So let's say, for example, this was 0 order. 1 minus 0 is just 1, so it's just molarity over seconds. And molarity is the same thing as moles over liters, so you also could write it as moles per liter per second, because seconds is still in the bottom. Let's do, if it was first order, so again, it's 1 minus the order, so 1 minus 1 is 0. Anything to the 0 power is just 1, and so then it would just become 1 over time, basically. And then if it was second order, you would have molarity raised to the negative 1, which is, you could do a couple ways. You could write it to the negative 1 like this. Negative 1 means it's flipped, so you could do, instead of moles per liter, you could do liters over moles, and seconds is also on the bottom. So these two are the same thing. So just be real careful with those units. All right, so that was the first kind of rate law, and I'm going to show you how to calculate this in just a minute. And that's called a differential rate law. Again, differential is talking about how the rate of the reaction depends on the concentration. So you notice that you have both rate and concentration in the equation. The integrated rate law, we're going to focus in more detail on another time, but this is showing you how the concentration depends on the time. So it's kind of like, you know, how when you do speed, you have distance, time, and the speed. You have 3 variables, so you can talk about relationships between any of those. So again, the first one is the relationship between the rate and concentration. The second one is the relationship between the time and the concentration. And again, you don't have to memorize which one to use or even really figure it out. It's purely based on the information they give you in the question. And these 2 types of rate laws are related, so you can get from one to another if you need the other rate law once you have one of them. And this is pretty important. Why are we studying rate laws? We can work backwards to figure out the steps of a reaction. And I'm going to talk more about reaction mechanisms in another lesson. But basically, most reactions that we see written out in chemistry are not actually one reaction. It's usually a series of steps, kind of like when we did Hess's law, and you had to flip the reactions and make them add up to the overall. Those steps were part of the reaction, and scientists can use rate laws to infer what those steps are, which is kind of an important part in chemistry. And I'm going to stop this video here, and I'll pick up on 12.3 in the next video.